good, everyone? It's your girl, Maxotherealhottie, coming in hot with another fire episode of Trust the Process. Today, we've got a phenomenal guest. We've got the beautiful Bianca Le Grange in studio. How honored am I?
I'm so honored to be here. I've been watching some of the episodes. I got into some of the people. There's a lot of people I didn't know. So what's so lovely about Trust the Process is I'm getting to know the younger folk, man, the newbies in the industry, and it's wonderful. And I'm so happy to meet you.
Likewise.
You have great energy, man. It's awesome.
Thank you so much, guys. You here. Auntie B is with us in studio, and she said she watches our channel. If you don't, you're totally missing out.
You're totally missing out.
First things first, there's a lot of darkness going on in the air. How are you doing, really?
I will be completely honest and open with you. You know, I say honesty is the best policy. And a lot of people look at us in the entertainment industry and think, yes, glamourati, it's all glitz and glam and it's all, good. They're making a lot of money. It's like liquor. It's not all good. These past 2 years was a very difficult time for our industry. And with everything that's going on, the suicides, the deaths from COVID, just everything. We have to be the light of the world. That is what artistry is about. That is what we as artists are called to do. Ultimately, that's the first thing we have to do, is we have to bring light to the world. We have to show the world that we are their mirror. I talk about when you're in a relationship, your guy is your mirror, so how you reflect and how they react to you is what they see. And for me right now, I feel that artists are not being given the opportunity to really reflect what the world is right now. There's very few artists that are actually being exposed, that are speaking about the pandemic or speaking about things like suicide and the wars and all these things that are happening around us. I will, on a personal level, say that I'm good. I'm really good because I found a space where I could rest, where, you have to hustle all the time as an artist. So I really found a time to rest and take a step back and reflect. And when on my reflection, I was like, yo, dude, you've done a lot, man. You've been doing it. And patting yourself on the back, but also going, yo, you've wasted so much time. You didn't really reach those goals that you set out to achieve, and now you're sitting back and going, what is important? What is important? And that is my question that I've been asking. I also went through a depression. And I had to figure out how to manage that. And because I'm a woman of faith, I'm a Christian girl, I love the Lord with all my heart. In fact, before I came into the industry, I was a missionary. So I really lean onto my faith. I lean onto my support systems, which is my family and my very, very close, trustworthy friends, because you get those friends, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I'm in a good space. There's an very old saying, and I think it's a Chinese proverb that says you got to find the opportunity in the devastations. You got to find it in the crisis. What is the opportunity in the negativity? And for me, I really had to search deep within and go, okay, so what do I want to say now? I just turned 40.
Life begins at 40.
When I speak to young people and they go, yo, I was like in grade 1 when you did Idols, which was 20 years ago. And I'm like, dude, you're making me sound old. 40 years old. But 40 is in this new modern age, or in this 2022 age. I think if you look at Beyonce, if you look at J-Lo, I mean, her body is like
banging.
Next level. I'm like, I could never look like that. I can jump every single day and never look like J-Lo. But she's in her 50s and she's looking like a 25-year-old. So I think age is relative to how you want it to be. And I'm in the best space and place in my life.
That's such a beautiful thing to hear. I just want to touch on something that we were talking about just now. You were saying that in the pandemic, a lot of artists had to navigate and reflect. But in the midst of this pandemic, you founded a production company with your husband called DWB Productions. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, I definitely will tell you more about that. And thank you for asking. It's a fabulous question because it's what I'm focusing on right now. I'm somebody who have had my fingers in all pies in the industry. And the only reason for that is sustainability. I needed to sustain myself as an artist. So I found myself as a colored person, and I'm going to say it like that. We always have to adapt. You know, you're a chameleon. So when you're with white people, I can be white. When I'm with black people, I can be black. When I'm with colored people, I'm colored. And it's even broader than that. When I went overseas, people thought I was Brazilian.
Crazy.
When I went to Europe, people thought I was Spanish. So I find that our upbringing, and I'm from Eldos originally, not born
Away,
here.
Massacant.
Not born here. But I definitely grew up here. I went to Herengraag Primary School. My mother was a teacher there. I used to go to Mount Carmel Church. Our church was the Methodist Church. We used to go down the Methodist Church down in Old Eldos and up in Extension 2. So my upbringing was very versatile. I had to really figure things out because I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be a singer. I wanted to be a dancer. I wanted to be a performer, an actress. And everybody was like, nah, you should go and work in the bank. You should be a teacher. You should be a lawyer. You should be a doctor. Those were the things that our parents pushed us to. Maar ek was bietjie dom, man. Op school. Ek kon nie die mathematics so kwaai maak nie, man. Even though my mother was a maths teacher. I found it very difficult to lean towards the academic side of things at school. And already in standard 4, what standard 4? You see how old I am?
I don't even know what standard 4
I think that's grade 6. So even in grade 6, my teachers recognized that I was more artistic and not autistic, to be confused, artistic, which I was good at singing. I was good at dancing. It just was a natural thing that I did. I used to go to ballet up at Pop Center, man.
Crazy.
Yes, I used to do ballet in Spanish down there. Mom was the music teacher in the community, so we were singing and playing piano. I studied classical, piano, and violin. And then they recognized that actually, you know what, your future is going to be in the arts. So I started training already then to get into arts. And I'm so diverting from the question.
It's okay.
But what I wanted to say was that because of my years of, let me find the right words. Yes, here's it. Because of my years of disciplining myself in the different art forms, I could dance, I could sing, I could act, I could play instruments. When I came into the industry, they wanted to mold me into one specific thing, and I went against that because I could do so much and I could be so much. So I was very rebellious in the industry. But what it did for me was it made me sustainable. So when I say my fingers were in all pies, I go, I could do corporate events, whether it was emceeing and singing, doing cover music or original music. Or I could do a musical where I was playing a character. And because I trained in musical theater at TUT, you have to train in many different disciplines. I find myself always adapting and going into the different parts of the industry. And we are very segregated in South Africa. So when I'm in the Afrikaans side of the industry, it never overlaps to the black side of the industry.
Wow.
It never overlaps to, I would say, mainstream, the pop, the R&B, the radio kind of industry. it never overlaps with the stage industry. We are so segregated and so far removed from each other. I think one of my biggest dreams and passions is to bring that together. And I feel that onze mense, the brown people are going to do that, you know? We're going to bring people back together. And it's not going to happen now because we are still so conditioned by apartheid. I think it's going to happen in a few generations' time. But in saying that, I'd like to be one of the pioneers of that specific outlook and vision.
Wow, that's honestly a beautiful thing, and it's honestly moving away from my questions, but it's fine. Let's have this conversation because now you've just
Let's chat.
Something
man.
that I'm passionate about.
Yes.
I'm also a colored female. You know, I'm multilingual.
Yes.
I can mix with anybody, just like you. Okay, I can't dance.
I love your
sing.
hair. I love your hair.
Thank you so much. But thinking back on how June 16, for example, has lost its relevance to today's children, I think we really have a chance to break these barriers.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you're speaking about something like this, because not a lot of artists who have the capacity as yourself are passionate about stuff like that. Most people just want to gatekeep their success to themselves.
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things is we need to start putting out content about the struggle. And not the struggle of the past, but the struggle of now and the current struggle that people face. I think Instagram, Facebook, social media has brought this tradition or culture of everything is okay. And I have to be pretty, and I have to do my lash, and my hair's got to look a certain way. I got to drive a certain car. You always have to be shining, you know, on social media. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I must look at the positive side. I'm always trying to do that because what you think, you possess, and what you speak, you love.
Wow.
And that becomes habit, and habits become your life. And that is such an important thing to know, which I struggle with. I struggle. Balance of that is so difficult. But I think what we need to highlight are the people who are speaking about the now. And I'll give you a great example, Yemel Besem. Yemel Besem, Simon Witbooi, is one of my absolute favorite artists, and colored artists, and Khoi artists. He is, I call him our Khoisan prince, man. His grandfather was a king. His grandfather was a king of the Khoisan clan. And what people must understand is that our people, or the indigenous people of this land, were brown. They were the yellow people. And we are descendants of that. And we have to acknowledge, and a lot of young people don't know their history.
True.
So for me, I'm at a point, I'm 40. Yeah, right, it's 40. I'm 40 and for my whole career, I've been trying to mold myself and fit in the African genre of people where I'm not Zulu. And I kan ook hier in Zulu praat, jy kan so bietjie verstaan, but no, I'm not Zulu, and I'm not Xhosa, and I'm not Setswana. I'm not white, I'm not Afrikaans white. Ek is 'n boer. Even though some people thought I was white. But I'm not until I speak. Until I just need, I got my elders. But what needs to happen now is we need to acknowledge the people that are speaking truths. And we need to highlight people that are speaking truths to our souls, our hearts, our generation, our history, and our future. And you don't know where you're going until you know where you're from. And I'm on that journey right now. I'm currently doing research for a documentary that I'm researching for called Finding the Khoi in Me.
Wow.
And I couldn't understand hoekom is my boude dan so groot, man. Ek raak dik boude.
Same.
You know,
thick thighs
I
save
have
lives.
thick thighs. I have a huge bum. I was always conscious about it. I hated it because I couldn't wear jeans and I couldn't look like those girls that had the straight bodies. And until Kim Kardashian and these people came to make the bum famous or fashionable, I struggled for a long time with just accepting my body.
Wow.
You know, I hated my body. And I had to find out where does that come from. And I found a word called stereotypia, which is an English word, believe it or not, that you can find in the dictionary. And it simply means women who have an excess amount of fat around the thighs and the buttocks that originates from the people in the southern African region, which is the Khoisan people.
Wow.
So I originally was born in Kimberley. Onze mense kom van Kimberley af. And that's where the Griqua clan originally, you know, surrounded themselves. Went to if you do the history of the Khoi and the San people, they were hunters and they were gatherers. And then further down the line, when the Europeans came here and when the Bantus came from North Africa, they started mingling with the Khoi and the San, and that's how the Griqua came about.
Crazy.
So we are Africans. We are African, and we are from this soil and the original, you know, indigenous people of this land. So my journey right now is to go and find how does that all work out. And you can do an ancestral DNA test now, where you take your father's DNA and your mother's DNA and your DNA, and they can pinpoint exactly how much European, French, or wanneer ek vir my pa gevra, Dad man, what am I? And he said, Jay's an alien. Because there's nobody like you, Jay. Kom nie van hier af nie. But he said, you know, your lineage comes from the French people because of my surname. Le Grange. And I was like, I never knew that. I didn't know that I had French familie. Ek wil vir hulle net gaan sê, I'm coming to fetch my champagne. My champagne farm, we're coming to claim our land in France.
I'm with you on that one.
So for me, I think what needs to happen is we must stop focusing on the past. We must focus on the issues at hand right now, the things that young people and the world is dealing with right now. And we as artists need to start singing about this, dancing about this. We need to start creating characters and stories. I'm all about stories. I love stories. And that is why I do what I do.
So I heard you talk about having a little bit of, I would say, being self-conscious around your body. This is really strange to hear this from you, because I've known you as someone who's been confident way. And I think that's something that we don't talk about as well. The fact that despite looking at your body in a way of, oh, my thighs are too thick and my bum is too big, you still pushed through and you still gave 100% of yourself to everyone. Talk about that a little bit.
I will talk about that. In the entertainment industry, if you were a little bit overweight, they wouldn't consider you for a specific role. And it had a lot to do with what the industry demanded and wanted. And I lived my life in fear and in self-loathing for a very long time. And the older you get, the better it becomes. But I think that women need to start sharing with each other about the insecurities and about the things that challenge them. For instance, I believe that we were never taught about nutrition as kids. There's 3 major factors in life that we don't get taught by our parents. It's money, it's sex, and it's nutrition. And those 3 things are the things that can keep you alive for a very long time, or are the things that are going to kill you. So if you're going to have a pure nutrition and go on drugs and smoke weed every single day and smoke cigarettes and eat, oily foods and that kind of thing, and you're not working out, honey, you're not going to have a long life. Do you understand what I'm saying? The world has changed. The atmosphere has changed. We are killing our earth, with plastic and pollution and even these things called cell phones. We are killing the earth. And the way the earth is now as opposed to what it was 40, 50, 100 years ago, It's very different. So it's so important more than ever. Hence the pandemic. You know, people think that, and it needs to be proven, I guess some people believe that this thing was made in a lab and it was then put out. But a new study, and I watched it on Carte Blanche not so long ago, was that the way we are treating our earth as human beings, this is filtering into bats and filtering into animals. And these animals, their bodies are different to our bodies. They're creating these diseases. Hence, this was put out into the earth. And people will differ, and I'm not here to discuss that. But what I'm saying is, what we put out is what we're going to get back. So, and what you're going to put in is what you're going to ultimately love. So if you're going to be putting bad stuff in your system all the time, which I was doing, I was experimenting with drugs. I was experimenting with all sorts of things, like going to those beauty parlors and trying to put fillers and all those kinds of things. These things are not good for you. So the natural things in life are good. Fruit, vegetables, water. Do you know that people don't drink water?
Hides.
Water is so good for you. It's so good for your skin. It's so good for your body. It's so good for hydration. It's so good for your brain. Water, just water, brah. So I believe that we never were taught about nutrition. And when the Industrial Revolution was happening, they came to bring that industrial making things in bulk, because before that, it wasn't like that. You could go to the market and buy fresh fruit that was just picked. Now they're doing this industrial thing where they have to produce like millions of apples. So they're pumping these apples with all sorts of things, and there's a system to life. Do you understand what I'm saying? So we weren't taught about nutrition, and I had to teach myself about nutrition. That, meisie, as jy nou brood gaan eet en slap chips elke dag, of course the hips are gonna grow, because that's where the fat is gonna go sit in my body. That is where the fat sits from my people. Other people have big stomachs. Other people have big arms. Other people have ductator. So it's where your fat is sitting in your body depends on who you are and what your lineage is. And nutrition is one of the biggest things that I had to figure out. I had to figure it out. And even now at 40, I still struggle. So that was number one. Number two, money. Yo, after Idols, ek het gegooi, my bro. Ek het gegooi. Hi, what you doing tonight? I'm picking you up in a limo. We're going out. Ek het gespend op mense. Ek het mense geld geleen. I'm get changed to English again. So I borrowed people money and I wasted. I was like, I didn't have Barbie dolls growing up. Ek het vir my Barbie dolls gekoop. I was like, I want towels, I want bags, I want shoes. I spent my money on all these things that you could just throw away. You know, you couldn't invest in it. I wasn't investing. And then sex. Sex was a big thing. We growing up, you were told that it was taboo. It was you don't even go there. You know, sex was like a dirty thing. When you became a young woman, nobody explained to you what this was. You were just kind of shoved and said, wear this, and you were painting and ons worry van hy pains gaan skool toe. You were kissing that guy for the first time and he was touching you and you didn't know how to say no. You know, and you just let people kind of control your body. You didn't have control over your body because you weren't taught, this is my body and I am in control here and I can decide. And even further on in life, we when the Kim Kardashian thing came out about the sex tape thing, and it made her famous. And they were like, we started from the bottom, now we're here. And that was something people were proud of. And I was like, that is so disgusting. that is such a private thing that happens between two people who are in love, and yeah, it's been shared, you know, in the world, and they can judge and they can hire it and make their own and even have their own sexual thoughts around it. And I was like, how disgusting is that? And yet the world is honoring this and praising it, and it's amazing. But I feel like we weren't taught about sex, and we weren't educated about how beautiful and sacred and incredible this thing is. Because when you have sex, a woman gets impregnated, you know, and she brings life. Nobody else on this planet can bring life, bruh. But woman, the female. So these are things that I'm dabbling with in my later years and trying to understand, because I want to be a mom and I want to teach my kids those things, you know. Trusting the process. Trust the process. It is the fundamental only thing that's going to get you to succeed. Mm-hmm. That's going to get you to your goals. That's going to get you to where you want to be. I trusted the process very, very late in life, and had to realize that it's only through discipline, mm-hmm. through consistency, through passion and purpose. Walking in purpose, it takes a very long time, because you first have to understand what that purpose is. And then you have to understand what the fundamentals are that you need in order to walk in that purpose. A pastor doesn't just get up and preach. He might be talented in speaking, but he needs to study the Bible. He needs to have insight in life in order to speak to a congregation and move people. A doctor needs to study for 8 years and practice on bodies and make a million mistakes before they can call themselves a doctor. A lawyer has to study. An engineer has to. There's processes that you have to go through. A process cannot be jippoed. It cannot be done in a quicker manner. You have to go through. It's like a baby is born. It doesn't get just born and then it's a big person. A baby is born, it then has to get the tana, and then it gets the crawling, and then it gets to walking, and it's fumbling and it falls, and so life, it's the process of life. This reality requires the process. Mm-hmm. It requires to fail. Mm-hmm. It requires to stand up and try again. Mm-hmm. It requires to be disappointed, to be rejected. You can't understand love without understanding hate. You can't understand jealousy without understanding loyalty. It is a process. And our generation of kid, which I'm talking about the 40s, the 30s, because the millennial, they are in a whole other world. You have access to things that we never had access to. So for me, I feel like our generation of kid was the generation that wanted to be saved. Oh, somebody's going to recognize me. Let me sing in church. Somebody's going to realize that I'm talented. Oh, let me just go stand in the line. Maybe somebody will see me and recognize my beauty and give me a modeling job. Oh, maybe if I just play loud enough, and somebody will hear my piano playing. Oh, somebody was gonna save you. And I was like, I had a different attitude. I was like, no, brah, nobody's gonna save you. And I had to realize that very quickly. We live in a day and age, and I'm so happy to be living in this time of revolution, the revolution of technology. You can take your phone and record yourself, my bro. You can take your phone and make a video and start a brand and tell your story and put it out there. And whoever's interested is gonna check it out. You're gonna do it. You're gonna say, I'm gonna dress like this. I'm going to brand it like this. there are beautiful things out there that can make your brand spectacular. All you gotta do is get onto the internet, guy. I was like, yo, when I started out my first album, I was told, you're gonna sing this, you're gonna record there, you're gonna work with this person, this is what you're gonna wear, this is how the cover's gonna look. You know, I had no say in anything. Even though I was like, oh, you guys are doing such a bad job. Listen to that recording, it sounds so horrible. And I didn't have a say. I was like, yup. We live now in an age where you can literally take your cell phone. Your cell phone, dude, it's with you in your bag. And you can make content. And you can tell your story to the world. And maybe 5 people will listen. Those 5 people will go, this is it, nah, my bro. I resonate with this. They're gonna now swap it over to somebody else or just send it to somebody on WhatsApp. I was like, this is amazing, man. Hence starting DWB Productions, where we found ourselves in the pandemic and we didn't have work. And I said to my producer, come and stay over, let's create. We can't move anywhere, let's just create. And I said to my pianist, yo, I love to make a song about flowers. Can we just write a song about flowers? Nobody's gonna hear it, but it's us creating. We're not getting paid. We're not getting work. Hence, we started DWB Productions. And I was like, why didn't we do this ages ago?
Wow.
You know, I know how the process works. And then getting back to trusting the process. You have to trust that God has a plan for you, man. There is, whether you believe in Allah, God, Buddha, I believe there's an entity or there's a bigger picture at hand, and there's things at play that we don't understand. How did I get the role of West Side Story's Anita? I did ballet and Spanish here in Aldo's. That was the last time I danced. This is almost 25 years later, and I get the role. How does that work and play out? You know, such a demanding role, 200 shows in 2 years. It was insane. And I'm dancing with like heavy professionals that have been training for like 20 years. So trusting the process is so important. It's so important. And the most important of all of that in the process of trusting it is the discipline. The discipline in working on the craft, the discipline in getting up again, the discipline in, you know, brushing it off and going. Daai mense is nie vir my nie. Those are the wrong people that that they're here to use and not here to enhance and build. And I've had that many times. So trusting the process and knowing that even in the bad, knowing that bad is just as good as knowing the good. Because if you didn't know the bad, you wouldn't recognize the good.
I'm getting so much goosebumps and I'm in awe of your being.
Don't say that.
No, honestly, you're dropping so much nuggets and I feel a lot of people need to hear this, especially my people, colored people. I mean, you trusting the process, you putting this craft and working on yourself has put you in the likes of J-Lo, P. Diddy, Beyonce. Ek het gehoor van 'n colored vrou wat voor Beyonce geperform het. How crazy is that?
I was very, very fortunate. And what people must understand that this industry, you are the it girl today and tomorrow is voorbij. And if your goal is to be famous, I'm gonna have, I have good news and bad news. Yes, you can be famous, but fame doesn't put food on the table. One. Fame it's an illusion. Because fame is what people out there perceive and not who you really are. And I think that's what a lot of famous people in the world, not just in South Africa, in the world have to deal with. You know, if you think about recently Ricky Rick committing suicide and everybody's like, but hy het alles. gehad. He was the it boy in his time. Fame it's an ugly beast, and if you don't know oneself, it can gobble you up and it can spit you out and trample you like, hey, it's an illusion, brah. It's not a tangible existing thing. And let me tell you, to be famous is difficult. I've experienced my fair share of fame, and there's nothing worse than walking in a mall and thousands of people want to just bother you and take photos, and you're trying to have dinner with your family, and they feel like they own you. You know how many women come up to me and go, "Hey, jy het fit geraak. Why are you so fit? Oh, I don't like this hair. You must change it back to that blonde. That blonde was nice. This is not quite." And they have their opinion about who you are and what you're supposed to be to them. And it's hard to be something to other people that they, in their minds, imagine, when all you're trying to be is just yourself. And I find that when I look at a lot of my colleagues that started out when I started out, they've changed themselves to such a degree. If you look at Kalimera, I know her as a dark girl. She changed herself so dramatically from this beautiful brown girl. Not that she's not beautiful anymore. I think she's still very gorgeous. But she changed her skin. And I don't know what that's about, because even Michael Jackson did it. But I think there's a certain psychology that comes with being famous, that if you don't know and are secure within yourself, you can lose yourself. You can really lose yourself. And it's hard. And the question again was? Ek praat baie man, because ek het baie om te sê, and I wish I can have my own talk show to be able to. In fact, I must just have a 24-hour radio show where I can just put out stuff on some. Listen, here's the secrets. And probably when I'm much older, I'll probably do it.
We were talking about performing for P. Diddy, J-Lo, Beyonce.
Yes. So my very first international tour was the Usher tour. And my manager at the time, Mr. Mike Fuller, taught me a lot. Put me on this tour for Usher. It was the very first time Usher was coming to South Africa, and I got to open for him. And ek moenie sleg praat van mense nie, but Danny Kaye was performing with me on that tour, as well as Jay. So when we went to Durban, Jay was the artist from Durban that got to perform. I got to perform. I just came out of Idols. 20 years ago, I had no original material. I was singing Whitney Houston and Donna Summer covers. I had a fantastic band, the Rockets, who are an iconic band in South Africa. They're out of Cape Town. Not many young people will know them, but they date back to even the early 80s. And I got to play with the Rockets, my bro. And for me, that was like, the Rockets are backing me at the Usher tour. It was like huge. And I perform. The people go crazy because it's songs they know. And they just saw me on Idols. And it's like 25,000 people in the audience. And it's just like, what is my life right now? And sitting backstage, and Usher walks by and stops and goes, "Yo, that was a dope performance." I was like, "What? Usher's telling me that was a dope performance? This is unreal." And when we were in Johannesburg, he was like, "So, don't you want to stand in the audience?" Ek was so mal. Daar is elders mense daar. Hulle gaan my trek daar in die golden circle as jy. I can't stand in the golden circle. And he was like, "Oh, please, man." And he goes, "Just for inspiration, I'm going to look at you for inspiration to sing." Ek was just, why didn't you say that in the first place? And I ended up standing just in front of the golden circle with the speakers and the photographers. And then he starts singing, "And she over here." And the girls go crazy. And I'm standing like this because it's langs die bass bins. I'm like this. Oh, this music is too loud. And he sings, is she over there? And the girls are going crazy. They're going crazy. And he's busy doing his usher thing that he does. And eventually, he goes, he points at me. He goes, why is he pointing at me? And these two bodyguards lift me by my arms. And hulle groot man, those American black guys, they're groot. And they all of a sudden I'm on stage. And Usher starts dancing. Da, 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 da. He's doing the thing. And he starts taking his clothes off. All I thought was my parents are in the audience. And I've got on a halterneck top. But my toppie net hier agterhou with one string. And I'm thinking, please don't pull that string. Die mense gaan my titie sien. Don't pull that string. Daar's elders mense hier voor. Hulle gaan my uitlag. And he starts twirling me around and sits me down and French kisses me in front of 25,000 people. And I don't know what to do immediately. I didn't know how to French kiss in that moment. It was just, die man se tong is hier. And he puts the U thing over your neck. Daai U met die klomp bling bling. And it's heavy. Ek is soos, die ding is zwaar. And all I'm thinking in my mind is, I was dating Luis Obala at the time.
Sorry, Loiso.
He was in LA and his brothers and sister were in the VIP and my mom is there and I'm embarrassed, my bro. I was like, I don't know what to do. Ek maar net so vir Asha gekyk and then all of a sudden I was off stage. And the next day, the newspapers went crazy. And it wasn't an innocent thing. They made me look like such a hoe. Yeah, she's with Usher. They went to their hotel room and did this whole. It was nasty, really, really nasty, and it was on the front page of the what was it, Sunday World at the time, and they went really crazy. They for weeks, they couldn't stop talking about it, and I got to actually sit with him before they left. And he was like, you're so talented, and I got to tell him my story. We still communicated months after that by email, and then I left my management, so then that ended right there. But then years after that, I found myself in New York at a club with some comedians. We were standing in a long queue, and this limo pulled up, and Usher, Jermaine Dupri, and Janet Jackson steps out, and they walk past, and I'm thinking in my mind, there goes Usher, and all the stuff that he did in South Africa, and took my name through the mud, hulle het hom omtrent vir my lelik laat lyk, and then he stops, and he goes, "You from South Africa? What's your name again?" And I go, Bianca, and the comedians from New York are like, how the hell do you know Usher? And he was like, no, come, who you with? And we ended up walking with them into the club, past the long queue, sat in the VIP. He spoke to me for about 5 minutes, and then they got up and left us with their table. And these comedians from New York were like, who are you? And it was such a beautiful experience because, I knew in my heart I didn't sleep with Usher. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like that. Mm-hmm. I got to perform, and out of his mouth, he was like, "Yo, you're very talented." And I thought, I'm just a colored girl from Aldo's. How is this even happening? And that was the real story. And the stories that are out there are the stories that are out there. But that's what happened. Yeah, and then years later, I got to do the first 46664 with P. Diddy and Beyonce, with Alicia Keys. That was on one of the biggest stages I've ever performed at Greenpoint Stadium. For Nelson Mandela, I got to meet him, which is spectacular. I think Missy Elliott was performing in New York at the time, so they were streaming, and U2 was in London, so it was like the streaming thing, the first 46664 concert for Nelson Mandela. And then the following year, I got to open for Beyonce, and I didn't have time to rehearse with the choir that I was with. And I was so nervous that I vomited behind her speaker. Now, what people don't know, when these international acts come, they get treated like royalty, and then our artists get treated like second-hand citizens. And KB and Tamara Day at the time, I remember we were doing our sound checks, and they gave us a small stagey, man. Small stagey in front of the stage, like this. And there was a curtain. And when the curtain went down, it was Beyonce's stage with everything and how we know it. But we as South African artists had like this small little stagey key to perform on. And in our rehearsal, we were like chucked out. We were like, okay, no, the stars have arrived, you guys have to leave. And I was so bitter about it for so many years that I stopped liking Beyonce because of it. And then I realized that it wasn't her and her people. It was our own, like, South African producers and production people that put us out. And my anger was misplaced. And don't get treated like the stars that we are in our own country. And then when these international stars come, they get paid millions and millions of dollars, and they get everything that they possibly can want. And there we performing in this small little stagey. It was horrible. But then I got to see Beyonce in, I think it was Argentina, in Buenos Aires, and I got to speak to her again backstage, and I was like, "Ma, die meisie is aan mooi, man." And she's a brown, beautiful woman, and she's, yes, a huge respect as an artist. She's, I've had to do covers, of her covers for shows, for corporate shows, and have to dance. I was like, how the hell does she do it on heels nogal? So, yeah, and then my last story I'll tell you is I went to Amsterdam, got to open for Jagged Edge in Amsterdam. That was an experience. Amsterdam, as you know, it has the red light district, and it's the country of weed. But I went there with my mom, and she was like, "Jy gaan nie rook nie, want jy sing vanaand. Jy gaan nie rook nie." And I was like, "Mom, we're in the land of weed. I need to try this thing." And I'm talking about years ago, before people were so open to weed. I convinced her to kind of eat a cookie, man. Those
The space cakes.
the space cakes. So it was like a muffin, and there's me and my mom eating a muffin, my brew, in Amsterdam. And it was such an experience. When the cookie kicked in, we were at a blues club where this band was playing, and somebody had recognized me and went, "She's a singer from South Africa." And they call me up on stage, and this cookie kicks in, my bro. And I'm like having to get onto the stage, and it felt like the stage was so big. I was disorientated. But what a beautiful experience with my mom, and we still don't talk about it today. But I got to open for Jagged Edge, and I promise you, when they announced my name, the audience turned their back on me. The audience turned their back on me. They were like, "Idol South Africa, who is she?" They here for Jagged Edge, in this audience. And I saw it. I went on stage. I was alone with a backtrack, and these people turned their backs on me. I started singing, being around the world, singing a lot of things with the princess, all the kings and queens, and they started turning one at a time. And I went through my hour set. And at the end, they were dancing and clapping, and they were like, "Yo, you dope, you're amazing, we like you." And backstage, got to meet Jagged Edge, and one of them had an issue with their visa because they're twins. They're two sets of twins. And one of them had an issue with their visa, so he was stuck in London, and he couldn't get to Amsterdam. And I got to take pics with him, and like, "Yo, you're so beautiful." You know how guys are.
Yeah.
And I was like, as jy van elders sal ek nie 2 keer na jou kyk nie. Jou daklippe, imagine. But I always found those international tours very surprising because of how people were treated. And it was an opportunity for me, great opportunities. Now I can say I've done these things, but it's not something that I wanted to sustain. It's just too difficult. You need a great song, a great hit, and I have none. And you need an incredible team that surrounds you. You need so much money. There's so much money that goes into those brands and personalities. There's so many people working on the around the clock in order to create those characters. Yeah.
So, Auntie B, there were two instances where you gave us an actual glimpse of reality in the lives of the glitz and glamorous, where you had said the whole instance that happened, or the saga that happens with Asha and newspapers and the media slandering you, and you mentioned opening up for Jagged Edge and people turned their back towards you. How did you navigate around that? How did you find the strength to continue?
Oh man, such a beautiful question. And I don't know how, because you know how many times I locked myself in my bedroom and cried for days, watching my series or playing. I was a gamer. That's how I met Louiso, actually. We used to play PlayStation. I was like, maybe we should kiss. No, let's play this game. And so how did I navigate? And I'm going to bring it back to what I said earlier about understanding who you are is so important. Faith was always the biggest factor. Knowing that God is bigger than anything and that you don't have to fear anyone but Him was always my motivation on, it's okay. Wees lelik met my, but your talent will always showcase who you are. And working on that talent, the reason why I'm still here as a performer, as an artist, as an actress, I'm so versatile and I'm so clued up in, I'm a genius in my field, but it took me years and years of practice to get there. I can stand next to Beyonce with her incredible performing and her voice. I'm that confident that I can stand with the top of the top in the world and go, I'm just as good. I'm just as versatile. I'm just as talented. And the reason why is because it took me so many years of discipline. I studied classical piano and violin. I haven't even showcased that part of me to the world yet.
Wow.
Also because I've neglected a lot of that over the years, focusing on acting and performance. But every time I find myself in spaces, people are surprised that I can do certain things. I'm a producer, as in I can get into a studio and I can record you. I took that time in 2010 with the World Cup, and they were just using a whole lot of black artists who were getting all the big gigs. We were being overlooked. And I was like, actually, you know what? I'm going to record an album. It's going to be called Met My Hart in My Seel. And I'm going to produce it myself. And I got into my home studio and I wrote the songs for 3 months with my co-writers. And we produced an album in 3 months. It took me forever to understand Cubase and Logic and all the programs. And then I'm a writer. I don't like to say I'm a writer. This is my money. My husband writes the most incredible things. But I can write shows and put them together like that. I'm a show producer. I can do it like that. I'm a musical theater performer. I can do it like that. So being so secure within yourself and knowing that, you know what, okay, I failed here, but let's learn what we can out of this experience and then move on. Harping on things that are past is the biggest mistake people do. The failures they hold on to. Oh, I didn't have a good song, Leave the song at Fassie Lekker nie is verby. Moving on, let's try the new song. That role wasn't so great. I didn't get an award for it. So what? There's more roles to come. There's better stories to tell. I think that's my biggest thing in life, is that I can leave things easily and shake them off quickly. The older you get and the more you practice that, the better you get at it. And even prepping for this interview, I mean, I didn't even say half of the things that I wanted to say. It may blight you down, thing. But that's the thing about professionalism. Time, people's time, is you have to respect it. Time is so important, because time you can't get back. When you understand those fundamentals, I know I've performed already for shows. I had a show called Bianca Revealed at the Baxter, in the middle of the Poasa, my bro. In the middle of the fast. And who are the clientele or the audience that go to Baxter in Cape Town? It's the Muslim people. And in the middle of the fast, I had a show. And one night there was only 10 people. And I had to perform, and I had to be amazing, like I was the night before when there was 150 people, and the night before when there was 1,500 people. So understanding those fundamentals is so important, that people are people. And you were just saying now, yeah, see, we're just talking, man. It's not an interview. It's important to treat people like people. The stardom thing, it's an illusion, brah. And until you can grasp that concept, people will love you more for it. Because humility, big thing that lacks in our industry. To be humble and go, I didn't know, or it's okay. I'm not there yet, but I'll get there. You being overlooked or being rejected or not getting the role. To humble yourself and go, yes, man, maybe I must just work a bit harder on my craft. Maybe I must just, because when you're standing in front of people and me and you are going for that audition, I have to be better than you, brah, to get the role. And unfortunately, that is how it is. But you know what we do? We go, I am better than you. Therefore, I look down at you. Can't do that. Because Mora, as Max, the star. And then I'm like, Max, can I come to your show? And it is Bianca Le Grange. And Max is like, it has been, please. Can't come to my show. Who are you? You were. And that's what we do in this industry. You know, there's so much insight, the generation before us. The people I looked up to was the Charlene Richards. They were the first colored women on, or black faces, Doreen Morris. They were the first black faces on TV in South Africa. Yet we don't acknowledge them. We don't praise them. Vicky Sampson. I was like, Vicky Sampson, my bro. I'm singing with Vicky Sampson. I wasn't as excited as performing an opening for Beyonce as when I met Vicky Sampson. I was like, Vicky, my African dream. I was like, Vicky Sampson! And she had an air about her and was like, and I went to her and I said, Vicky Sampson, hoekom is jy nou so lelik, maar ek is 'n man vir jou. And she told me a story about how she was overlooked for a show that in her mind she had, and I was chosen, which was the next generation. And she apologized and said, look, you know, you lovely girl, you great singer, great performer, and turns out you actually a nga person, man. You know. And one of my fondest and most exciting moments in my life was performing with them at Adderley Street, switching off the lights in Cape Town. And we got to go to our hotel afterwards. And Charlene was like to my mother, because my mother was my manager, Berenice, you're not invited. Jy moet gaan na jou chommies toe. It's only Bianca. We having dinner, me, myself, and Vicky Sampson. Me, myself, and I. Myself, Vicky Sampson, and Charlene Surti. And that night, I can't explain to you what a beautiful experience it was. They got to share their stories with me. We got to drink wine and got lekker dronk together. And it was incredible. And they put me, I fell asleep on the couch and just remembering them tucking me in. And that was such a beautiful experience, that these 3 generations of colored performers, like the matriarch Charlene Surti, and then the queen herself, Vicky Sampson, and then here's little old me, just entering the industry. It was an epic moment that I'll always remember, and I'll always tell over and over, because I learned from the best, and they paved. Hulle het paving gesit for me. I walked on that paving. I needed to pave further, and now other people are walking on that paving, and all I have to do is pass on the baton so that they can pave further for the next generation, until we get to the point, where we are at where we need to be, where we see ourselves, and that is authentically who we are, and being praised for who we are as people, and not having to conform or change or transform, just to be us. And finally, people are recognizing us, my bro, man. Finally. Isn't it lekker?
It's baie lekker.
Look at me in Aldo's. Yeah, with Trust the Process, and Max, and Wadeland, and Buddha.
Auntie B, we just want to say thank you so much for imparting. And I stand a queen. You are a force to be reckoned with. My perception has changed dramatically. Thank you so much for making the time to share with us. Can you let everyone else know where can we find Bianca now?
Obviously, I am on all platforms, on all the social media. It's so important. I struggle. But I put a lot of content
A lot,
out.
definitely.
I try. I do try. I need a team, actually, to take over. But you can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram, especially. I like Instagram. It's my favorite one. I've been performing on SABC 2 with the Music Roulette. And then I just got another show, which I can't really talk about, but it's got to do with sex. So check it out. It's coming on one of those DSTV channels. It's got to do with sex and everything, talking about sex. And I think, as you know, my views about it, I want to be a part of the educational process of getting, when I had an infection, because women get these things. I had it for so many weeks. I was so embarrassed that I refused to ask anybody about it, because I didn't want people to think that I was dirty, or that I was, sexually active, or that it came from somewhere, or that my skin was of HIV. I didn't know. I was so scared to ask that. For weeks, I suffered with this itch, and it's called thrush that women get from soap or from all sorts of panties or panty liners or whatever. I suffered so badly that to a point where I couldn't handle it. I got so sick that my insides started like aching, that I had to go to my mom and go, it's itching. I don't know what to do. And it was something as simple as just speaking up and going, I have a problem. What is the solution? Because I was so worried about what they were going to think, and what I was thinking. It was such a simple solution that I just had to take a cream and wipe and a pillicky, and within 2 days, my pain was gone. So I think that is, and it's a very vast example, very vast example. But I think if we speak more, we're going to be open more to, you know what, there is just a simple solution to this thing. That it's just going to take a cream of a pillicky, and in 2 days, you're going to be great. And I really believe that if we talk more, that we can heal our world with the things that are happening in our community specifically. Elders is very close to my heart. Wherever I go in the world, I tell people, because my elders don't mess with me, because the best don't mess, the cool don't fool. So to round everything off, I just want to say I'm so proud of Trust the Process. I met Wadelin at a show, and he brought me a portrait that he did himself. He brought it for me, that he drew himself, and I was like, yes, kyk hoe talented is so mense, man. And I was like, no, let me pay you for this. And he refused, and I said, no, I want to pay you for this portrait, you know. People want free things all the time, and I was like, no, I want you to understand that people can pay you for your art, and they should pay you for your art. You are worth all that time that you put in to create this thing. You are worthy of that payment. And then years later, he contacts me on can we do this interview? Very humbly, I was like this boy, like this humble vibe. And then I was like, because you said it and asked so nicely, of course. But it's so important to share and so important to talk. It's important to talk and pass on your knowledge, because you never know. You never know who you're going to inspire, who you're going to build. And I'm looking forward to seeing your career.
Thank you so much.
Yay. You've got good energy, good vibes. And that's what it's about, man. That's what it's about.
Thank you so much. The phenomenal Bianca Le Grange. I'm Maxotherealhottie, and this is Trust the Process.
Party jullie niet dat dieren donker als het licht. Kom eens rocken, bikkie mannen, breng ons af een bikkie terug. Nergens in die wereld is dat Paris, wat je kunt, ze komen